What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now follow me on Patreon. Not only is it the best way to help out the channel, additionally you'll get more say on what decks I cover. Special shout out to all of my high contributing patrons. Newsome, you rock. Additionally, you can always use that TCGplayer link in the description down below if you want to help out the channel. Now let's get into today's Deck Tech with the Indoraptor. And guys, I can confidently say I've blown this one wide open. We're going to run it as a Dragon's Approach strategy. Let me explain. You cast one Dragon's Approach and then your commander. That's going to be a total of 9 damage. And this guy will enter as a 12 power commander. 2 Dragon's Approaches and then your commander, and he'll already be at 21 power. That's enough to start doming people for commander damage. Additionally, where this gets broken is we're going to use cards like Life Legacy to draw a good portion of our deck. And if you've ever run a Dragon's Approach deck, you know that you can actually get to a point where you're netting mana off of casting these Dragon's Approaches, which is exactly what we're going to try to do. And then the dragons in the deck are going to be perfect utility cards. Let me explain. If we have Clouth, we can generate a ton of mana. Maybe you need card draw, we can have No Spine Dragon enter after we do 21 damage to someone and draw 21 cards. So they'll do exactly what you need. Maybe we're trying to end the game. We have a Skullspore Nexus on the battlefield. We have a 42 power commander now because we doubled up his power. We can grab Ziatora, sacrifice our commander, and dome somebody in the face for lethal. These are going to be the perfect utility cards, and again, we're never casting them. All we have to do is cast our Dragon's Approach until we win the game. If that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's kick it off by talking about the dragon package we run. Clouth Unrivaled Ancients is one of the ones I find myself grabbing most often. Remember, we cast our commander, he's instantly going to be at 12 power, so attacking with Clouth and him is going to net you 16 mana. You can basically dump your hand from there. Or maybe we already dumped our hand and we need more card draw. Null Spine Dragon is perfect for this. You cast Dragon's Approach, that's 9 mana, and then you smash face with your commander. On the low end, you're drawing 21 cards. Dragon Mage is also going to make the cut, just in case we don't have Null Spine or we have Null Spine in our hand. Just having another source to draw a ton of cards is going to be amazing. Old Gnawbone is also obviously going to make the cut. Now, I will grab this one over Clouth if I'm 100% sure that I can get in on my opponent. But 9 times out of 10, Clouth is just going to be more consistent since it happens on attack and you don't have to connect. Korvold is going to be an amazing card advantage piece in the deck. If you pair this with either the Reaver Cleaver or Old Gnawbone, not only will you generate a ton of mana, you'll draw your deck. So now you have all the mana to cast all the Dragon's Approaches, and Korvold just keeps drawing you into more Dragon's Approach. Not to mention Korvold's going to get massive, so that synergizes with the Power Matters strategy as well. Backdraft Hellkite can be amazing in a pinch. It can get us Jessica's Will. It can get us our Dragon Approaches back. That way we can cast our commander. It's just a very flexible piece to get our instant and sorcery cards we need back from our graveyard. Smoldering Egg is very funny in this deck because once we flip it over, every time we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we can ping our massive commander for 2 damage, sometimes dealing up to 40 damage to someone's face, killing them. Terror of the Peaks, it's very solid to sack our commander, draw a ton of cards, cast a lot of Dragon's Approach, cast our commander, and then Terror of the Peaks kills an opponent out of nowhere. Ziatora, I would like to mention this girl also just kills people. All you need is that Skullspore Nexus, your commander, and 2 Dragon's Approaches. Cast 2 Dragon's Approaches, cast your commander. Now you have a 21 power commander. Spend an extra 2 mana for some reason on the Skullspore Nexus to make your commander have 42 power. Then you sacrifice your commander to Ziatora. Ziatora domes somebody in the face for 42 damage, and then Skullspore Nexus for some reason says, hey, here's a free 42/42 creature. Last but not least, we are running Dragon Tempest. What good are dragons if we can't give them haste, right? Not to mention, it is a way we can sort of ping our commander and do more damage to people's face, which is what this deck wants to do. Now, you've seen the badass dragons. Time for me to explain how we're going to net mana whenever we cast a Dragon's Approach. Locket of Yesterdays is an amazing artifact in the deck. It's going to make it to where eventually all of those Dragon's Approach cards are going to cost 1 red mana. Ruby Medallion and Goblin and Archomancer. What's notable about these is they also reduce your commander's cost. So in a scenario where we're trying to get our commander to 21 power, it's just going to cost 6 mana now instead of 9, and that's huge. Burgy's solid. Now the other ones are better because they reduce before you cost, but Burgy's still pretty good here. Whenever you cast a spell, you just get a red mana. Urabrask, kinda similar, and it also synergizes with throwing some damage around. Not to mention in a pinch, it is pretty easy to to flip this guy, and he has a ton of utility on his back. We're talking solid removal, solid ramp, then he has a way to cast instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard. Super busted. Stormkiln Artist, you knew this guy would be in here. Just a brief explanation on how we're actually netting mana whenever we cast these. The first thing we need to do is get them to cost 1 red mana. Locket of Yesterdays can easily do this. Or we use Goblin and Archomancer plus Ruby Medallion at the same time. That will also reduce them to just 1 mana. Then we need 2 of the other effects like Burgi and Urabrask, or we need Burgi and Stormkiln Artist. Having 2 of these 3 on the battlefield will end with us either netting a treasure token or red mana, and from there it's game over. Moving on, let's talk about the power matters part of the deck. This is how we're going to draw the majority of our cards and how this deck is so efficient. The first thing we're obviously including the all-star of the deck, Skullspawn Nexus. It's very easy to get a 12 power commander on the battlefield, and then we can easily cast this for 2 mana and then pay an additional 2 mana, and we can start one-shotting people. Not to mention it has a really funny interaction with Sword of Hearth and Home. Now whenever we deal damage with our commander after we've doubled its power, we can blink our commander and it will enter in with that much more counters. So for instance, if it has 12 power, we double it, it's got 24 power. Then whenever we deal damage, it gets blinked, it'll re-enter with 24 counters on it, and then we can easily make it over 40 power next turn. Life's Legacy, Momentous Fall, Greater Good. It's very easy to sack an over 20 power commander to draw 20 cards, and now getting those pieces to make it to where we're netting mana on all of those Dragons approaches is not that crazy when you draw cards this hard. Return of the Wild Speaker, Rishkar's Expertise do something very similar. The Reaver Cleaver is amazing in the deck. It's going to give our commander Trample. He already had Menace, but Trample is just going to seal the deal, and then that will net us enough mana to deal with our other 2 opponents. So we'll dome 1 in the head for commander damage and kill the other 2 with either Dragon's approaches, or we can use stuff like Zeatora plus Terror of the Peaks. Selvala is not only another solid way to add a ton of mana to our mana pool, additionally it's just a very easy way to draw some extra cards because our commander is going to be the biggest thing on the board consistently. Chandra's Ignition, get your commander to 40 power, cast this, you've won the game. Minsk and Boo is an amazing card early game. You're just going to start putting counters on that hamster and then start smashing face. It's not very hard to get this hamster big fast. I mean, even sacking it the second turn it comes out, the hamster's already going to be 4 power, so you can deal 4 damage to your opponents, sack the hamster, draw 4 cards, do another 4, and then cast your commander for 11 power. I'll take that. Moving on to the core of the deck, we are running Rhythm of the Wild. I really don't want my commander to get countered, and again, if we're able to get this guy on the battlefield for over 21 power, it's definitely going to catch people off guard and someone's going to die. Swiftfoot Boots is super solid to protect our very important dragons. People like to destroy the dragons. Deflecting Swat, again, people like to destroy the dragons, so now we can protect the dragons. Florian is going to be an amazing card in this deck. It's almost like a pseudo extra commander. Once we start dealing damage with those dragons approaches, we can dig really deep to get to our key pieces. That way we can assemble either the Power Matters strategy to start doming people for lethal, or we can start assembling the strategy where we get our dragons approaches to cost almost nothing. Digging 20 plus cards deep every turn is gonna get you there, especially when you have access to this much mana. I thought Sword of Hearth and Home was honestly pretty clever in this deck. On its base, you're gonna get a land every turn, and your commander will get an additional 5 power every turn. 2 because it's getting +2 from the sword, and then it's got 3 base power, so it's going to enter with those extra counters. Additionally, if we have the Ozolith on the battlefield, it's going to count as it leaving the battlefield, so all of those counters will get stored on the Ozolith. Stupid busted. Black Market Connections is going to pull a lot of weight in the deck. Not only is it going to make sure we're hitting our land drops, it's going to make sure we're getting extra mana. That way we can easily get to that 6 mana we need to cast a Dragon's Approach and our commander. Additionally, you do want that 3/2 as well, because every little bit of damage we can do to our opponent is just going to be more cards, more damage in the long run when we cast our commander. So while it just looks like a 3/2, no, it's 3 extra cards whenever we cast Life's Legacy. Pyro Bohemia. Guys, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. All you need to do is get your commander with 20 power on the battlefield and a Savala or a Reaver Cleaver or an old Gnawbone, generate 20 mana and just start sinking it into this. It will kill the entire board, your opponents won't have anything to sacrifice, and then your commander will just start doming everybody for 20 in the face. It's very easy to kill someone with this. Grape Shot does something very similar. When we are going off and casting all of those Dragon's Approaches and netting mana off of them, the last thing we're going to do is cast our commander and then Grape Shot the crap out of our commander. And then again, we just start pinging our opponents for 40 damage to the face. Jeska's Will is the perfect card right after you cast your commander, because right after you cast your commander, your goal is going to be to either get a Clouth on the battlefield or get a Null Spine Dragon on the battlefield after you smash somebody's face with that giant commander. So you're either looking for a lot of card draw or a lot of mana, and what can get you there? Jeska's Will. Now you can draw into more Dragon's Approaches, and Jeska's Will can easily give you the mana to cast those last few Dragon's Approaches you need to get that massive dragon on the battlefield. Urza's Saga is very flexible in this deck. If we need Locket of Yesterdays, we can grab Locket. If we need Ramp, we grab Soul Ring, and if we just want to save our counters from our commander, we can grab the Ozolith. So with 3 amazing targets, I think it's kind of a no-brainer here. Agadeem's Awakening can be super solid if they just keep removing all of our key pieces. Goblin Anarchomancer, super cheap, Bergie's only 3 mana, and even Urabrask is 4 mana, so you could get all 3 of those back in a scenario where they've all been removed. Additionally, if you get to the point where you can generate a ton of mana, you can even start reanimating those massive dragons they've removed. Shatter Skull Smashing is just free in the deck, it's solid removal, and we are kind of running out of slots because we have to run all of those Dragon's Approaches. Moving on to Ramp, we took a very efficient route. We have Ignoble Hierarch, Nature's Lore, Farseek, 3 visits. I like these here because it's essentially a Gruul deck that splashes black, so we really don't even need black mana, but in a scenario where we do, these can fetch it. Cultivate and Kodama's Reach are amazing in decks like this. The fact that it guarantees your next land drop, and we aren't really running as much lands as we would be if we were doing a splashy dragon deck, because we're not really trying to cast those dragons. All we're casting is the Dragon's Approaches and our commander, which is 3 mana, so we don't really need a ton of lands, so we're able to cut down on lands, but include cards like these that guarantee us to get our lands. And then Soul Ring, yeah, because Soul Ring. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. I'm really proud of this one. I think I cracked this guy wide open, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments. And hey, if you want to check out that Indominus build, oh my gosh, this guy's explosive, and you can again just start beating face with massive dinos. That's all we're going to be doing this week, so go check that out. Last but not least, I appreciate all my patrons. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do it without you guys. As always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. I will see you in the next one.